Hi guys, welcome to a new episode of AB in the Films. I just got back from seeing It, Chapter 2. Okay, I don't know how long this review is going to be. I got 56 minutes on the battery. It could be a 56-minute long review because there's just so much to talk about with this movie. Okay, I was gonna go see this opening weekend. I thought it would be crowded, so I avoided it. I waited until opening weekend was over and went last night to see it with my sister. And my sister's not a big horror fan, but she saw Chapter 1, I guess it's called now, with me 2 years ago, and she thought it was, she wasn't crazy about it. But she was expecting to be scared. And here's the thing, she never read the book, and neither did I, but I grew up with the miniseries when I was a kid, so I knew the story, and I knew kind of what this was going to be. It's not a horror movie, guys. It is not a horror movie. Unless you're afraid of clowns, which I never was as a kid. I never gave much thought about it. But I was never... I will admit, I probably talked about this when I reviewed It, the first one, on the show 2 years ago. But I've always thought the miniseries was just okay. Like, I was never afraid of that movie. But when I was 11, 12 years old, I think I was about maybe 11 or 12, because I was a horror movie fanatic when I was 11 years old. I mean, I was getting into Hitchcock movies at that time. I was anything scary or horror in a movie, I had to see it, because I was just obsessed with that stuff. And with it, especially with the miniseries, and I'll get to Chapter 2, I know you guys want to hear what I have to say about it, I'll get to it in a second. The miniseries... it does have creepy scenes in it. It's not a scary movie at all. In fact, since I've gotten older, it's actually more of a comedy. Like, watch that movie again. It's a comedy. Hell, if you've seen the Nostalgia Critics review of it, I mean, like, come on, it's a comedy. It's not scary. It has creepy scenes in it, yes, that are still creeps me out. Like the scene with the sink and the balloon comes out and it pops and there's blood everywhere with Beverly looking at that. Like, that was creepy. The scene when the book starts turning and it starts bleeding, there's blood all over it. That was a creepy scene. Sorry if I'm spoiling the miniseries for all of you who haven't seen it. And by the way, there will be spoilers in this review, so if you want to see this movie, the key word being if you want to see this movie, go see it and then come back and hear what I have to say. But there will be spoilers here, because we got to talk about this movie. Okay, so I knew they were going to split the book, because the book is so thick. It's like this thick, isn't it? It's so thick, the book. And I actually tried reading the book back when I was a kid. I only got through like maybe the first chapter and then I put it aside. I never read, so I never really did read the book. But as far as Chapter 1 goes, Chapter 1, I thought it was good. I liked it. I really liked it. I really loved the actors they got to play the kids. I thought they did a really good job. And because it's an adaptation, like, there are going to be changes. Like, I know the book takes place in the 50s, and in the late 80s, 1990 is when they're supposed to be adults, because, again, 27 years later, do the math. But in this adaptation, it takes place in the late 80s, and then 27 years later, we're in the now. So, okay. So, what did I think of this movie? It's not good. It's not good. Hold on. It's not good, but it's not bad either. It's somewhere in the middle. Let me put it this way. This is not a movie I would go to the theaters to see again. It's not for a second time, because, again, I don't work at the movie theater anymore, so I have to pay money to see movies again now. I got away with that for 5 years. I didn't have to pay money to see movies because I worked at a theater. But anyway, I would not see it in theaters again. I can see myself watching this movie if I had a couple of guys over and we were watching chapter 1 of it and we just wanted to finish the story and have a really good laugh watching it, then I would watch it. Pretty much that way. I will probably get it on DVD, probably, when it comes out. There's so much to talk about. This movie is 3 hours long. It did not have to be 3 hours long. I mean, the miniseries was 3 hours long, and that had most of the stuff from... that was essentially the whole book adapted into the 3-hour miniseries. This movie is the second half of the book, and it's 3 hours. And again, I don't know what was added, what was left out, what was changed, because again, I haven't read the book, but did it have to be 3 hours long? And I didn't know that going in because my sister bought the... Okay, I knew they were going to split the book up into 2 movies, saw the first one 2 years ago. When this one came out, I haven't seen trailers for it. I mean, I came across the trailer maybe a month, 2 months ago, and watched it and thought, oh, okay, this is going to be good. I'm excited because when the first It ended at the end of the movie, when it came out 2 years ago, I remember thinking in my chair in the audience, I'm thinking, gee, I wonder what the rest of the book's going to be like. I can't wait to see it. Well, here we are 2 years later. Okay, so my sister bought the tickets, we go to the theater, we sit down, we saw it in the IMAX theater. And the reason why, like you're probably wondering, wow, you saw this in the IMAX? Wow, that's a lot of money there. The reason why is because, guys, I hate going to the movies. Nobody knows how to shut up in a movie anymore. Everybody's talking, everybody doesn't know how to shut up. So we went to the IMAX for that reason, and to my surprise, there were a lot of people in there. I didn't think there would be. But it was an okay theater experience. Like nobody was a disturbance or anything. Okay, so when we sat down, we literally got there just in time. We sat down, the Warner Brothers logo comes up, the New Line Cinema logo comes up, and my sister's checking her phone, and she looks over and whispers to me, Andrew, this is 3 hours long. I was like, what? Like, I didn't scream that out or anything, but I was like, but the miniseries was 3. How can this be 3 hours long? We're halfway through the book. I mean, even the first one, I think, was like, what, 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think? Maybe 2 hours and 20? Maybe less than that. I could be wrong. But I know the first one wasn't 3 hours. So the movie begins, and we cut to Derry, Maine, 27 years later. Again, for those of you who don't know the story of it, if you do know it, fine. My sister was disappointed by this movie big time because she thought this was going to be a horror movie. And I remember thinking, I was thinking, and again, she hadn't seen the miniseries. I'm like, Gina, it's a killer clown running around. I mean, like, this is going to be like Evil Dead stuff. And let me tell you, a lot of this movie it feels like it. It really does feel like I'm watching Evil Dead 2. Or not Army. I wouldn't say Army of Darkness. Definitely Evil Dead 2. Like, because it does have like a few. Well, I don't know about a few scary scenes, but this movie is loaded with jump scares, and I hate jump scares. That's the cheapest thing you could do in a suspense thriller horror genre movie. So it's 27 years later. And Mike, who is the only guy from the Losers group that stayed in Derry all this time, knows that the creature or the killer clown has come back. Pennywise has come back. So they all made an oath at the end of the first one. If it ever comes back, we'll all come back together and we'll kill it. So he calls up everybody. And again, you know, I really felt like I was watching the miniseries throughout most of the movie here, because in the miniseries, and I know I'm going to be comparing this to the miniseries a lot, but in the miniseries, if you guys have seen it, it opens up with Mike calling up everybody, and every time he calls them up, it cuts to flashback which is basically the stuff that we saw in the first movie. But the first movie wasn't a flashback, it was different. So, but that goes on and on and on for like, I think maybe the first 40 minutes, the first 40, 45 minutes, it cuts back to him. Like, it's not even a montage. Like you could have put that into a montage. We don't need to know what every single person is doing and very detailed, because again, it never comes back into the story. At least not most of it does. Like, we don't need to know what Beverly's doing now, and we don't need to know what Richie's doing or anything. I mean, like, if you're gonna let us know what they're doing, you can at least explain it really quick. You don't have to have, like, whole scenes dedicated to it, because again, it doesn't ever come back, really. So, it's really kind of pointless. A lot of that could have been cut out. But this was the first 40 minutes of the movie, at least, I think. I mean, they all don't go to the restaurant and meet up for the first time in 27 years until, I think, what, minute 45 in the movie? And again, you know, I'm not being crude to this movie. It's just, I've seen this before. Only this time, it's done better, and yet not so much better. And the reason why I say better is because, again, if you've seen the miniseries, the kid actors in that are good, and the adult actors, as much as I love John Ritter, are bad. In the miniseries, the acting in that miniseries from the adult actors is bad. And not only that, I just thought it was bad casting. Like, none of those adult actors look like the kids that are playing them. You know what I mean? But in this one, they got the act. I thought the performances were decent here. I mean, well, let's be honest. Bill Hader was the funniest thing in this movie, aside from Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, pretty much. But out of the kids, or the adults now, Bill Hader, oh god, he's always funny, Bill Hader. He's always funny. But when you see the adults there, I remember thinking in the theater, I'm like, you know what, I can see that kid growing up looking like this, and because they got actors that look like the kids, just as adults, you know what I mean? So that they did a lot better here, but again, that's not a major thing, but I found that distracting in the miniseries, because you watch the miniseries and you're like, Seth Green doesn't look like that, or, you know, this kid doesn't look like that, or, I don't know, but that's me. So, the movie goes on that they all meet up, and they have to perform, and guys, this is where it gets, and again, you know, it's so silly. Because I'm an adult, I mean, like, the only person I can see this movie actually terrifying someone is if that person was maybe 5 years old. And even then, 5-year-olds should not be seeing this movie, no. But, so, they all get together and they have to perform this ritual. And again, much like in the miniseries, you know, they were all holding hands. I remember thinking in the Nostalgia Critics review of it. So now they're all holding hands together in the sewer. It's like a Care Bear special, I guess. So, seriously, if you haven't seen the Nostalgia Critics review of it, the miniseries, I strongly recommend you watch it. You will laugh so hard to that. So anyway, they have to perform this ritual. And they talk about, or at least Mike does, because Mike never left Derry, so he knows a lot about this stuff. And he's talking to Bill, and he tells Bill, who's played by James McAvoy, who actually, he was pretty good in this, tells him about the deadlights and what this thing is. Not exactly what it is, but how to defeat it. And it gets so silly with the Native Americans, and they're showing you the ancient tribes, and it's like, what? I'm sitting there, and I'm just laughing so hard. I'm like, what in God's name am I watching here? How did we go from a killer clown eating kids to this? Like, it just, oh man, it's just funny. I just thought it was funny. So, anyway, so that happens. And again, you know, much like the okay, again, I'm going to be comparing this to the miniseries a lot, because this time it really did feel like watching the miniseries. Only a little better, but not so much. In the second half of the miniseries, when you see the adults a lot more, again, they're having flashbacks left and right in the miniseries. In this one, you do see that. So we do get more scenes with the kids that we didn't see in the previous one. And again, I don't know if both these films were filmed back to back. I don't know if they were. Because I know that I knew that they weren't going to do the second one, which is the second half of the book, unless Chapter 1 made money. And it did. It made a lot. So obviously they were going to do the second half. But maybe this is me. Maybe I'm wrong about this. But the kid who plays Eddie in this adaptation, the kid, I believe that, wasn't he in the movie Shazam earlier this year? So his voice has already deepened. It doesn't sound like the way it did in the first It. So I'm starting to wonder, did they just get a different kid to dub his lines in or something? Because if you watch this movie and you watch the scenes with the kids in it, yeah, they try to get the kids to look like the way they did in the first one, but because a couple of years have gone by, some of the kids have gotten a little taller, some of them sound a little different, because again, these kids are going through puberty, but it makes me wonder, did they get someone to loop Eddie's lines? Because I don't think it's his voice. And if it is, okay, great. But I don't know if it is or if it isn't. Because again, I don't know if these movies were shot back to back. Or maybe all the stuff with the kids was shot, and they saved all those scenes for this one. I don't know. I don't know how this was done. So I'm just guessing. So yeah, so anyway, after Mike explains the deadlights, and don't look into his deadlights, don't do that, that's the big thing. What they have to do is, basically, in order to destroy the creature, Pennywise, they have to go into the sewer, and again, I knew this. They have to go into the sewer and perform this ritual while holding hands, but they have to put in something that from their childhood that they remember that they have to find in Derry. So they all go on their separate ways, and they all encounter Pennywise in some kind of Evil Dead 2-ish way, and each one is funnier than the last one. But again, it goes on and on and on, and it just keeps... Like, I don't want to say the word dragging, even though it felt that way, but I was having so much fun. Like the scene with Beverly that we all see in the trailers, when Jessica Chastain, she goes into her old house where her father abused her, and goes in there, and this old woman lives there now. And we saw the trailer. You knew that was the clown. You knew it was. But, like... I just remember, like you know, like she's smiling, like you feel like you could just die. Anyway, how do you feel? You know, that whole scene, well, she leaves the room to go get some cookies or something, and Beverly turns around and she's looking at these pictures that the woman has hanging in her house, and she goes, "Oh, what did your father do?" "Oh, he joined the circus. He performed in the circus." And right as she says that, she sees a picture of the old woman as a little girl, and guess who's her father? The clown, without the makeup. And right as Beverly's looking at that, behind her in, like, the hallway, the old woman's, like, walking like this, like, half nude, real, like, almost like they're speeding up the footage. And I'm like, this is... Like, any moment, I'm waiting for Ash to come in with the chainsaw and go, swallow this. Like, any moment, I'm waiting for that. And again, I wasn't the only one laughing at this movie. We were all, everybody, because we know what kind of movie this is. If you went into this movie expecting it to be a horror film and expecting to be scared, shame on you. And again, I am not putting it down. I am not putting this movie down. I'm not putting the book down. I have respect for Stephen King. I do. I like this story. But you really thought this was going to be a horror movie? Really? So, and by the way, Stephen King has a nice little cameo in this. And they have this running joke throughout the whole movie where, Bill's obviously a script, he's a writer. He's a writer now as an adult. And, one of the running jokes in the whole movie is that, he wrote a book and nobody likes the ending. Nobody likes the ending. Everybody hates the ending. Everybody hates the ending. Even when he goes into the secondhand store to get his bike, he sees he's walking through the streets of Derry, you know, trying to remember his childhood and things that happened so that he can help destroy Pennywise, and he finds his bike in the window in a secondhand store, and Stephen King is running the secondhand store, not as himself, but as, you know, it's a Stephen King cameo, and he's there, and he goes, "Hey, I know your book. Oh, it was good up until the ending. The ending sucked." And I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, is this foreshadowing to us? Are they telling us that we're not going to like the ending? Because that's what happened with the miniseries. That's what happened with the miniseries, but I don't know if people felt that way about the book, but okay. So, anyway, so that's happening. So they all have their little moments. Bill Hader actually had a funny scene there. I thought this scene was so funny. There's a jump scare involving when Bill Hader is Richie. He's walking around. Apparently there's a fair going on, and he's walking around and he finds he's looking at this giant statue that sits in the middle of the park, in the middle of town, and he turns away and he turns back at the statue and it's missing. And I'm sitting there going, oh boy, here we go. And the statue comes alive, it has sharp teeth, and it's running after him, it's trying to kill him. It's like the big friendly giant if it was a killer clown, like walking, trying to kill him. And I'm just, and then he turns around and he's like, this isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real. And he looks up and there's Pennywise with the balloons. And Bill Skarsgård, listen, this guy is having the time of his life in this role. He is getting into it like crazy, but he's not taking himself too seriously. So that I love. I mean, like Tim Curry was the same way in the miniseries. This guy is loving every minute when he's on screen, and it's awesome. And you can tell he's having fun with it, because he knows what kind of movie he's in. And Bill Hader, you could say the same thing for Bill Hader. Bill Hader has all the funny throwaway lines, because Bill Hader's not playing it too seriously, because he knows what kind of movie he's in. The guy who plays Mike, he's taking it way too seriously, but again, it works because of the subject matter, so it kind of works, you know what I mean? Even though he is taking it seriously, it works. Don't ask me how, it just works. So, that happens, and, and then something else. So, for those who don't know the story, yeah, if you don't know the story, well, some of you might not. So, when Mike calls everybody up to come together to Derry to meet, because they haven't seen each other since they were kids, you know, they all have different lives now, they all came over to meet, and they're waiting for Stan. And, we know what happens to Stan. Stan kills himself. That's not in here, by the way. It's in the miniseries, but it's not in here. But, they actually have a nice, explanation for that at the end of the movie, which I thought was really well done. Again, I don't know if that's in the book, but that was really well done too. So, Stan kills himself, and they all open up their fortune cookies because they're in this Chinese restaurant. They open up the fortune cookies, and it spells out, you know, sorry, Stan couldn't cut it, or whatever the line was, I forget. And all of the fortune cookies start snapping and opening, and these weird, creepy things are crawling out, like a dragon's head with a baby's face on it, an eyeball coming out, and I'm like, this is Evil Dead 2. It's like it's like when everything in the house was possessed, and the deer on the wall goes. It's just like that. It's the same thing. I was just laughing so hard to this. And so after they're done with that, you know, and Mike's just beating up the table with a chair, and he's like, this isn't real, this isn't real. The waitress comes in, and of course, everything looks normal, and he's beating the crap out of it with the chair, and he's like, we'll just take a check, please. And as they're leaving, they're walking away, and Richie's like a big stand-up comedian, and this little boy, who actually shows up quite a few times throughout the movie, this little boy they don't know walks up to them just as they're leaving the Chinese restaurant. He goes, hey, are you Richie? And he goes, yeah, me? And the little boy looks at him, he goes, the fun's just beginning. And we're all thinking, and he goes, all right, listen here, you little mother, like he's cursing the kid out, like, you are not real, you are a killer, you are not gonna fool me into this, I know your games, you're not gonna play these games with me. It turns out that that's actually one of the lines from Richie's show. He wasn't the clown, and the boy's parents come and take the kid, okay, all right, leave these crazy people alone, we're leaving now, we're leaving, and they're leaving, and he goes, Richie, you don't know any of your lines? He goes, I don't write my material. And Eddie's like, I know it! I know you didn't do that! Like, that was pretty funny. That was a good scene. But this kid actually keeps coming back. You know, I remember there's a scene where Bill goes by the sewer where apparently Georgie was killed, you know, with the paper boat, and he almost gets taken by Pennywise, and just as that happens, the kid just so happens to live on that street. He lives in Bill's old house, and Bill grabs the kid. He doesn't even know this kid. He's like, listen, you get out of this town. You do not stay here. You leave. You get out of here. No matter what your parents tell you, don't listen to anyone. Don't listen to anything that tells you to go down there. Nothing. And let me tell you, this kid's taking it really well. Like, if I was this little kid, I would have ran. Because this guy's getting a little too, like, again, like, he doesn't know Bill. He doesn't know these people. And this guy's an adult. I know he's trying to protect the kid and everything, but that's just weird, man. It's a little weird there. So that happens. And you know, forgive me if I leave anything out, but we're talking about a 3-hour... It's 2 hours and 49 minutes. Either way, it's 3 hours. This was a 3-hour-long movie. Like, when we got to the climax scene, you think it's gonna be over in like 20 minutes. No, it's like a 45-minute long climax. It was so long. So long. And I wasn't like checking my phone waiting for it to be over. My sister was doing that. I was looking over every half hour she was checking her phone. She did not get up to leave. I'm surprised by that. She usually gets up and leaves if she doesn't like a movie for like a little while, and then she'll come back. She didn't do that once, so I give her credit for that. She usually doesn't do that. But anyway, back to the movie. So, I'm trying to think if I missed out on anything. Oh yeah, there's a couple of scenes with Pennywise with children, and it's just supposed to suspense. It's just supposed to be used for suspense. Like, there's one with him and a little girl at a ball game. There's one with him and the boy. When they get into the fun house, that was a good creepy scene, but it was funny. And again, we've seen it in the trailers. It's when Bill goes into the fun house, and he's in the glass house, and he's trying to get the kid out of there, and Pennywise is getting him first, and Bill's trying to break it. He's trying to get him first. But that scene's really played out long, and Pennywise is like, he's looking at the kid, and the kid's all freaked out. He doesn't know what to do. And Pennywise is like, and he keeps banging his head against the glass, trying to break it, and he keeps shattering and shattering and shattering. But he's just like, Bill's just having fun here. He's like, and all I'm thinking of is, what would Tim Curry do? And then I'm thinking of the miniseries. Wah-ha, 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 wah-ha. Like, it's just so oh man, this was a lot of fun. So he, and again, sadly the kid dies. He gets the kid. He looks at it just as it's all shattered. It gets very quiet. The music dies down. And he comes right, before he even bites the kid, red blood all over the glass, all over. And Bill's like, yeah, it was intense but funny. So that happens, and then when they finally get all their items together, Henry Bowers, forgot to talk about him. Apparently, he's been in a mental hospital this whole time. He comes back to his house when he was a kid. They find that he slit his father's throat. Remember in the first one, he did that. Kill them all! Kill them all! That was a creepy scene, by the way. Funny, but creepy. There's a lot of creepy scenes in this movie, but they are funny. I can't... Because it's a guy in a clown suit. So, anyway. So, after that happens... Henry Bowers gets taken away, and he's in a mental hospital his whole life. And Pennywise comes to him, or I think it was one of his friends that got killed by Pennywise. He's like a skeleton, he's all... And it's just, like, the CGI... The CGI is not good in this movie, but when it's funny, it's really funny. So he gets recruited by his friend, and they're in a car. They're driving in the car. They're gonna get the kids. They're gonna help out Pennywise, I guess. And he finally catches up with them. He tries to kill Eddie, and he misses. And I thought this was so fun. You know, the way the actor who played Eddie as an adult, when Bowers stabs Eddie in the face, and he stabs Bowers back with his knife. He comes out of the bathroom, because it happens when they're in the house, because they're all hiding out in this house. I think it's Mike's place. He comes out of the bathroom, and he's bleeding out the side of his cheek. And Beverly and Ben see him, and they go, Eddie, what happened to you? He's like, I just killed Henry. I just stabbed Henry Bowers. He's in the bathroom. He just stabbed me. Like, just the way he said that. Like, who? Like, out of nowhere? He's here? Like, that just came out of nowhere. But again, it was good. Okay, so, did I leave anything out? Because we're talking about a 3-hour film here. So, okay, so, at, I think, the 2-hour and 5-minute mark, 2 hours and 5 minutes of this, we finally get to the scene when they have everything ready, they're gonna do the ritual, and they go back to the haunted house. And guys, the rest of the movie, and you know, you think this is gonna be 20 minutes, maybe 30, tops, including the final scene after this big ritual, to sum up the end. No. This is the last 45 minutes of the movie, and it just goes on and on and on. So what happens is, they go to the house, they go down into the sewer, and they go down deep, 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 deep into the sewer. And while they're doing that, all I'm thinking of is, if this turns out to be a giant stop-motion animatronic crappy-looking spider like we had in 1990, oh, man. And I know it wasn't, so then I started thinking, if it's a bad CGI spider, that's gonna be, oh man. And granted, that's exactly what we have, but I'll get to that in a second. So, they get down, they start performing the ritual, and the deadlights start coming down, and they're like, don't look at it, don't look at it, don't look at it. Hold hands, everybody, hold hands. Okay, all right, turn light into darkness, or darkness into light, or whatever it is. It gets sucked down into this jar, and they have to put the top on the jar. But just as it gets in there, they try to put the top on, a balloon starts coming out, and Mike's like, no, keep chanting, and he's trying to put the jar on the thing, and the balloon's getting bigger, and bigger, and bigger, and bigger, and I'm like, here we go, we're gonna have some fun here. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then I start to then I'm starting to think, oh, what if it pops and there's blood everywhere? You know, like it was in the miniseries when Beverly's looking into the sink and the balloon pops up and it explodes and there's blood all over the sink. It didn't do that, but it pops and it's so loud they can't hear. It becomes like Saving Private Ryan a little bit. They can't hear anything for a few seconds. And then there's Pennywise, and he morphs. First of all, in the miniseries, you don't see Tim Curry. I don't think they could have done this. If they could, it was probably going to be bad stop motion, but it was bad anyway in 1990. What they do here is they have Pennywise's head, Bill Skarsgård's head, half his torso, on a crab spider kind of thing. Basically, it's Pennywise's head, torso, and Henry J. Waternoose's crab legs from Monsters Incorporated. That's the best I can describe it. Only the CGI looked a lot better in Monsters, Inc. This did not look good, but it was funny. And the whole movie, and the rest of the climax is him trying to get them in the sewer. They're constantly running around, and we're having side scenes, and Beverly's in one area, and Ben's in another, and it just goes on and on and on, and you're like, when are they gonna kill this thing? And so, and again, a lot of the movie did feel like filler, because Mike keeps having these conversations with Bill and Ben and Richie and Beverly and everybody, and they're like, we have to kill it. This is the way we kill it. We do it, we win. After 27 years, we can kill it. Just kill it already! Oh, so, and we get in the sewer, and they're still having conversations like that. Just kill it! So after that happens, then they have, then they finally, I forget what happened. Oh yeah, somehow they get the idea, like, if we're not afraid of it, somehow that'll make him smaller. It'll shrink him down. So they just call him a clown. They keep calling him a clown. You're not scary. You're a clown. You're a clown. A clown. And he's like, no. And he shrinks down really, really small. And they pull his heart out and rip it up, and and then he just evaporates. Kind of like Voldemort in the last Harry Potter movie. Just evaporates. And so that happens, and Eddie gets killed in the process. I knew that was gonna happen, because I knew that happens. So they leave, and the whole place starts falling apart. It kind of turns into The Mummy a little bit. After they kill the creature, now the whole sewer is falling apart. The Mummy did this. So they leave, and they sneak out, or they sneak out. They run out of there. The whole house falls apart. They get out of the house, because they're in the sewer, which is in the house. It all falls apart. It all comes down. Ben admits to Beverly that I'm the one that wrote you that poem, not Bill. They end up falling in love together. And they all get a letter from Stan that Stan wrote to them, why he's not there, and what it means to be a loser. Maybe being a loser's not that bad after all. And you know, and they all go their separate ways again, and then the movie ends, and for a while it kind of felt like Return of the King a little bit, because there's like, here's an ending, here's an ending, here's an ending, and you're like, when is this gonna be over? I know it's 3 hours, but when is it gonna be over? I wasn't waiting for it to go over, but, like, enough's enough. Like, come on. Like, it's the second half of the book. It should not be 3 hours long if it's the second half of the book. So, that's It Chapter 2, and there's no It Chapter 3. So, that's the movie. And my sister said it sucked. So I wasn't surprised. She's like, I remember when we left the theater, she's like, why is that a horror movie? That wasn't a horror movie. That was like a funny comedy. And I said, what did you expect? What did you expect? So anyway, what did I think of this movie? Guys, I had fun. I'm not saying, look, it's not a good movie, but it's not a bad movie either. I had fun. Someone I know went to go see it a couple days ago, a friend of mine, and he said it was very underwhelming, not as good as the first one. And I remember thinking, you know what? Yeah, because you know what? The miniseries was kind of like that. The scenes with the kids were really good. The scenes with the adults, not so much. The same could be said here. I mean, the performances are a lot better by the adults in this. I can say that. And of course, Bill Skarsgård's a lot of fun to watch. He's a lot of fun. I mean, just like Tim Curry's a lot of fun to watch here. Like, how can you find this scary? I think back to the first It, when they're all in the house and Eddie's there and he broke his arm and Pennywise comes out of that refrigerator all mangled up and he's like, it's time to float now. And he's like, and he does this dance as he's walking towards him. He's like, ah, ah, oh, ah. Like, can you not laugh at that? That is hysterical. So, okay, so, wow, I've been talking about this movie for 40 minutes. Okay, so, my battery's just about to die anyway. So, what did I think of this movie? Guys, if you're looking for a movie that brings that Evil Dead 2 feeling inside of you that just makes you laugh, but also appreciate, well, I don't want to say appreciate, because I don't think everybody's going to appreciate this movie as much as I did, but, if you're looking for a fun time at a movie, and you want to be, that has jump scares and a lot of funny lines from Bill Hader and some of the actors, and if you want to see a guy in a clown suit having the time of his life, watch It Chapter 2, because you will not be disappointed if you're going for that. If you're going to this movie to be scared, well, I don't know what scares you if you're going into this movie to be scared, but it certainly didn't scare me, and I had a lot of fun. So that's all I can say for It Chapter 2. So those are my thoughts on It Chapter 2. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys in the next review. Later.